This episode of the Bill and Callie Show is brought to you by Tiger Plumbing. Whether you need to replace a faucet, overhaul your sump pump, or desludge your drains, call Tiger Plumbing. In today's world, knowing who's at your door is important. Tiger Plumbing sends you your technician's photo, estimated time of arrival, and a little bit about him or her. Hey, Sam likes fishing and camping. Cool. Boss put you in charge of the company picnic? Strack and Van Til can cater that. In the doghouse? Strack and Van Til's floral department can help you with that. Birthday, anniversary, shower, or get-together? Strack and Van Til's bakery and deli departments can help with that. Want additional savings? There's an app for that. Strack and Van Til, your Northwest Indiana hometown grocer since 1959, with 20 locations to serve you.
Hello, we're here with Lenny Corso, who is the president of the Noontime Kiwanis, and also with us is Roger Kneeland, who is also a Noontime Kiwanian here in Valparaiso. We're here to talk about the Veterans Dinner that's going to be coming up that is sponsored by the Valparaiso Rotary Club and the Kiwanis Club. And Roger is lucky to co-chair it this year along with Steve Miller, not the band, but Steve Miller, who also is a veteran. And may I also add, all these gentlemen with us today, as well as Steve, have served in the military and served this country very well. So we're here to talk about their Veterans Dinner. So I'm going to turn it over to them and let them give us some information about dates and who's going to be there and so on.
Okay, I'll start off. Our Veterans Dinner program, it's called the Veterans Appreciation Dinner, is going to be next Wednesday, November the 6th from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Old Town Banquet Center, 711 Calumet Avenue in Valparaiso, Indiana. The Veterans Dinner programs have been going on for a long time for both the Rotary and also the Kiwanis. But they were at lunchtime. And so about 3 years ago, they would bring in about 110 people, we'd bring in about 140, 150 people. And when I took over the chairmanship for the Veterans program, I said one of the things I want to do is I want to move it to the nighttime. I made that decision based on the fact that a number of people had come to me and say, you know, I'd love to take my dad or my grandpa, but I got to work and I can't take an hour and a half off for lunch. So that was the motivation to move it to the evening time. Then Rotary and us got together and we were talking and we said, why don't we just collaborate together? We're both for the community. We're both about serving the veterans and honoring them. So 3 years ago, we moved it to the evening time and 400 people showed up. We packed the place.
Yeah,
and
you we were there. Yeah,
you were there. And we packed the place and we found a good recipe and a good formula and we've kept it up. Last year we had another excellent program. We will have another one this coming Wednesday, next Wednesday I should say, November the 6th. We have a dinner. We have the Valparaiso University band that comes. Every veteran that attends is recognized by name and they get a chance to stand. And this year we have, we're going to recognize a 100-year-old veteran, World War II veteran, Mr. Myron Knopf. People in the Valparaiso community know the Knopf family, longtime educators, and I believe he was in the Navy and he was the assistant superintendent at Valpo Schools at one time. So it's going to be a special honor. We have a Marine who is going to come and be our guest speaker. He takes care of and counsels PTSD patients. And, the first year we had an Army speaker, last year we had an Air Force speaker, this year we had a Marine. Now I got to be careful because I got to check in with the Navy and the Coast Guard over the next two dinners that are coming up. It's been well received by the community, and this year we're inviting various veteran organizations to come in. They don't have a lot of time to speak, but we're going to have them put up a table in one of the sections of the room so people can go to these tables and really talk to them about the services that they offer to the veterans within our community, which I think is a valuable service. We know that a lot of the veterans need services, they just don't know where to go. And this is the first step of doing that. Needless to say, the Vietnam guys, we weren't appreciated when we came back from Vietnam.
Exactly.
And now that we're older, we are trying to make sure that that doesn't happen to the guys that are in all these other conflicts, and more specifically Afghanistan and Iraq, and of course now Syria.
Right.
So we want to make sure that they're not forgotten. I look back on the days of coming back. I remember packing up everything in my car, including my television set, and drove from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, back to Indiana. No fanfare, got out and unpacked and moved in with my parents until I was getting ready to go back to Indiana State. And that was it. At least I can say that I wasn't spit on or anything like that, which is what a lot of the guys that got out of the service over in California
Yeah, we've
had to
heard
go
some
through.
of those stories, and it's just heartbreaking
Yeah.
to hear that.
So we're changing that, and we're just letting them know, hey, we are here for you. Where in the past, the civilians, if you will, were not there for us. I brought Roger Kneeland, who is one of my favorite fly boys from the Air Force, as Steve Miller was last year. And Roger was in the Air Force, and he was a pilot. And I'm going to let him talk about his time in service there in Vietnam, and what kind of planes he flew, what kind of missions he was on, and just share some of the stories that he's been involved with serving our military with the Air Force.
Absolutely.
Roger, it's all yours.
Yeah.
I might mention a couple of things for housekeeping as far as the event.
Yes.
You may have said something, but it's $20 a ticket.
Correct.
And the tickets you have to purchase by the 1st of November, correct?
Good point. You have to purchase by this Friday. It's a very short window we have.
Right.
It's 3 days, and they can get the tickets online or any First Source bank in Valparaiso.
What's the online, where do we do that? Is
It's
Eventbrite?
it's Eventbrite, and if they go on Facebook and type in Valparaiso, Veterans Appreciation Dinner, then the Kiwanis Rotary information will pop up on Facebook. That's probably the easiest way to
Right.
do it.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the
Well, that's all
clarification on
right.
that.
That's okay. I didn't want anybody to miss out.
That's correct.
Now,
Absolutely.
besides online, are tickets available if people don't have internet access?
Yes.
Can they go to First Source?
Well, it's First Source Bank. All 4 branches have
Four
them.
branches,
Yeah,
okay.
they'll
Or
have
any
them.
member.
Yeah,
Right,
or
or
any
any member.
anybody that knows a Kiwani or Rotary member, they can get it from them as well.
Okay.
It seems
Or
like
if they contact us, we can put them in contact and
Absolutely.
we'll make sure.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
one thing I want to say that's nice about this event to hear you're going to have is the information for veterans, because and I know there's a lot of resources out there for veterans, but these poor guys don't have access to the internet necessarily. They don't have access. I know, Lenny, one thing that you brought to my attention is being able to take your service card to the Department of Motor Vehicles and get the application put on the back.
Yes, you take your DD Form 214, which is the official discharge paper. You take it to the license branch, and I'll speak for Indiana, and they will make a copy of that. And then on the back of your license, they'll put a V.
Right.
And so when people go and ask, do you give military discounts? And they'll say, yes, we need proof. Well, on the back of your license, they'll have that V, and they'll honor that, and they'll give you the discount.
Right, and that's information I've told vets that I knew that they didn't know.
No.
And thanks to you sharing that information, so it's nice that you guys are going to have tables with all this information, because life is hard on these guys.
Right. And there's a lot of programs out there for them that
Yeah.
they may not be aware of. And
The
so
vet-
having
yeah.
that available
That's right.
is
Social
great.
In fact, the
programs.
Veterans Administration itself issues a card with a photo ID,
Oh, wow.
for use with actually is primarily if there are discount programs, things like that. Because you go in a store, how does someone, you say I'm a vet? Well, that's all well and good, but,
Yeah.
you know, and I think those programs get abused a little bit sometimes. You know, and so this is available through the Veterans Administration. It's very simple, online.
Right.
But again, the online thing is fine, but if somebody's 73, I happen to be 74, so I can speak to that, and they haven't kept up with social media and all the rest of it, that's tough.
Yeah.
You know, they have to know
Yeah,
that.
and you know, a lot of them don't. I mean, they've fallen on hard times, and you know, and you know, it's one of the things we always talk about is, you know, we should provide more benefits for people that we send over to defend us, you know, and defend our freedoms. But that always doesn't pan out by the time they get back here to stateside, and you know, well, they may be out there, but like I said, the information getting to them is not necessarily clean, and I'm just saying it's great that you guys are going to have those tables available. So they come to dinner, they can go stop by the table and you know, find out some information about resources that are not available. You know, maybe some information on how to deal with certain issues in society, or get some other benefits that they don't know they have. So that, I think that's great.
Well, I'm going to add this. This program is not only just for veterans, but veterans and anybody that wants to support veterans efforts. So I've had people say, well, I have my husband, he can come, can I come with him? And yeah, absolutely.
That's the best part.
The whole point of it is to be there in an environment where everybody is supporting veterans causes. There was a point I was going to make, and it just slipped my mind. So I'll come back to that before the end of the show.
Meanwhile, I want to hear Roger's story.
That's why we call it editing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I wanted to hear Roger's story.
All right.
Okay, go ahead, Brad.
My military service started with ROTC. I was in college in Massachusetts at it's now called University of Massachusetts at Lowell, in electrical engineering program, and I graduated in '68. So those years previous, '64 through '68, were prime, obviously, selective service times. And I had the interest anyway. And at that time, the ROTC was actually a requirement, believe it or not, at places that were called land-grant colleges. Your freshman and sophomore year, you had to be an ROTC
Oh, wow.
if you were physically able and weren't a veteran. But fast forward, I finished ROTC, got my commission at graduation, and I was lucky enough to apply for and get pilot training. So I spent the next year, I used to affectionately call it the year of 54 weeks, in Laredo, Texas, going through pilot training. And after that, went to survival school, and then I went through training to fly a C-7A Caribou, which no one knows what that airplane is. And it's a twin engine. Now remember, in Vietnam at that time, they were still using certainly Korean War vintage airplanes, and actually pressing into the early 50s. And this is a twin engine, radial engine airplane and what we did, we supplied special forces camps and fire bases out in the jungle, operating in a very short dirt strips, carrying, everything from barrels of gasoline and jet fuel for rations. I remember one time we carried 2 water buffalo to a special forces camp in the Highlands, and the only reason they wanted it so they could trade it for the mountain yards, which were the jungle.
Wow.
They wanted these water buffalo. And we were scared to death that things were going to get loose in the back.
They're huge, yeah.
Yeah, load balancing.
The load master was nothing. And we were all there scraping up afterwards. And then we would also carry troops. We could carry about 20. It was we carried 20 troops or a trailer, a trailer and a Jeep. And most of the trips were around 1,500 feet.
Wow.
To give you some idea, that's not even half as long as the short runway at Valparaiso. I mean, and it was either mud or dirt or pure steel planking, if you remember what that stuff is.
Yeah.
And so after a little over a year of doing that, and coming back with the one medal I appreciated, which was a Distinguished Flying Cross. The other was I did not get a Purple Heart. So those are the two. One I wanted, one I didn't,
Right.
and that worked out.
That's perfect.
After that, my assignment was in B-52s, which I was in that for another 4 years. Ended up flying out of K.I. Sawyer Air Force Base in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And then I left the service in '73. I was not, unlike Steve, who stayed in and retired. I was just what I would call a short timer. I was in for 6-7 years. And that actually, for most of the fellows that were in Vietnam, and commissioned folks or non-coms, that's more typical. There really weren't very many career at that time. And so in '73, I was getting out of the Air Force, had big bright ideas about how, watch out airlines, here I come.
Right.
My goodness, flying B-52s and
You're in like
set me
today.
free. Well, if anybody remembers, '73 was the Arab oil embargo.
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't buy a flying job.
Yeah.
But
Everything was.
it fast
slowing
forward
down.
to you had to have the right numbered thing on your license plate to buy gas on an odd number day. Anyway, this gets out of the military when I went through continued flying, and I was in the corporate aviation business for the next 40 years, really.
Wow.
I flew for Inland Steel for a number of years,
Oh, wow.
25 actually, and then I flew for NIPSCO Nice for another 15. And then I retired 4 years ago, and I'm still flying on a contract basis for some local companies.
Nice.
Anyway, so that's sort of the thumbnail sketch of my career. I really appreciate this thing for the vets. I was not harassed or anything like that when I got back that I remember. Of course, some people might say that you just didn't notice it. So, but I grew up in a small town in Maine, and so there was none of that when I got back. It just wasn't. I mean, that was so. I really feel for those guys that literally did put up with all the crazy stories you hear. But I don't have a story like that to tell. I know that it happened, and we're going to make sure it doesn't happen
Never
anymore.
again.
So my experiences in Vietnam were, like all of them, were good and bad. Luckily, I got through without getting seriously hurt. We were shot at frequently, mostly small arms, but we would come back with holes in the airplane almost every time, somewhere. We didn't even realize it. And we always wore flak vests and stuff. But this was all low altitude flying. This wasn't from high altitude or fast.
Right.
You're
We were
susceptible
very
to a
slow.
lot
Very
of
Very
susceptible
slow.
to-
small arms fire.
In fact, I was just looking up some, excuse me, some information about the airplane, and I'm going, I didn't remember it was that slow.
It seemed fast.
But anyway, it was, the things that stand out are well, for instance, doing the missions, we had to go up and pick up wounded. That was good news and bad news. They're wounded, but they're going to get better. We're taking them back. The absolute lowest part was when we go out and pick up corpses in the body bags. And we would have stacked up in the back of the airplane. And go back and look at this body bag with a dog tag and another piece of paper, and I don't remember all the information, but it always had the name, sometimes a home address, hometown. And boy, I tell you what, that's when it got your attention.
Yeah.
Even not as much as friends who I lost while, other airplanes and things, but that was tough. And so, on the other hand, I remember one of the things that I always thought was kind of amusing, and I thought it was kind of silly, but it really worked. They did something every year they called a Santa. The airplane was called a caribou. In the front, it had kind of a bulbous nose in the front. And they used to, at Christmas time, they would paint up the front to look like Santa Claus. Aww. And they call it the Santa Boo. And they'd take it around these places, and they would have the ladies, we always call them donut dollies, but they work for, I can't think of the organization now, but...
Red Cross?
Yeah, well, that Red Cross was one of them.
US
Yes, and Salvation Army.
Yeah.
And they had a whole stack full of things that were donated that they would give out as little gifts to the guys that hadn't seen anybody maybe for weeks and weeks, certainly no women. That was fun.
But I'm thinking, the one good thing is you got to bring those guys home.
Yep.
Even if they weren't
One way or the
coming
other.
back. Yes,
Right.
one way or the other, because there are still
Yeah. And
guys
that-
over there that didn't make it home. So
And that's something
that's a
we
good
all
thing
owe
that you did.
you, specifically, and all the people who served overseas and here in providing support services. They all filled a role, and some of them may have been extremely grueling mentally, physically, but we owe you all a debt of gratitude
Well, you
that
don't-
we'll never be able to repay.
You don't really owe us, with me, I can only speak for myself. Boy, I am dry. Wow.
Coffee.
Yes, I will take a little,
Okay.
Yeah.
thank you.
We're remote today, so we don't
That's right.
No, that's
we
fine.
don't have the Bill and Kelly bar that we usually
Nice one. Anyway, no, you don't, one thing that, it is nice, the old thank you for your service. And I find it's nicest when it's just a brief, some people kind of, just for my own feeling, kind of go overboard just a little bit, but that's okay, I understand. They want to make sure they may have second thoughts about something you'd said in the past. But just that's fine.
Or they know about
Yeah,
the stories
right,
that you guys went
right.
through when coming back from Nam.
Roger triggered the word when I had that senior moment a minute ago, and I couldn't think of it. The word loadmaster. There was a gentleman who I met at a restaurant, and I usually approach these guys if they're wearing their baseball cap on it. It says Air Force or Vietnam vet or something, and I always carry these little cards around to promote the program. And this happened last year, and I went to him and I introduced myself, and I said, we got the veterans program coming up, and he says, well, no, he says, I was just a loadmaster. I was just a loadmaster. In his mind, if he wasn't dodging the bullets or the SAM
That's
missiles,
right.
he wasn't contributing. And I just told him, I said, I was in Special Forces. If you guys didn't go and bring the ammunition, if you didn't bring the
Yeah.
food to us, we
Exactly.
weren't going to survive.
Yeah.
You're not just a loadmaster.
Everybody has a
You-
part of that puzzle that puts the picture together.
Right.
I look at a wagon wheel, it takes a lot of spokes to make that wagon wheel go around.
Absolutely.
And I don't think he did come last year, but I really try to emphasize to him, you're not just a loadmaster.
Well, you fulfilled your part of it.
Yeah.
And that's something I've heard some of the veterans that we've talked to, that they didn't play in a dangerous role, but yet they saw people that did, that either got injured or killed, and that is still a mental load on them, because it's like, why wasn't it me? Why did they get hurt, not me? And so there's almost like a guilt in some of these,
It
that's
really
the way
ta-
they
It
describe
really
it.
takes you back. When I got, I think it was an email, it wasn't a letter, but the family of someone that I had flown with that got killed in a mission about halfway through while I was there. Well, I knew it well because I was in the same, we bunked together. And they were doing a family history. Could I send something about what I remembered
Sure.
about that? I thought that was really, really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, it's,
When you flew your missions with the Caribou or the B-52s, we know Vietnam, for our civilian friends out there, Vietnam from the demilitarized zone south was down into four quadrants, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the route packages, North Vietnam, were, if I remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6A and 6B were over Hanoi.
yeah.
And now, how far up did you go?
We only went to the DMZ
DMZ.
because we were
Okay.
only going where there were
Gotcha.
places where the South Vietnamese army or our armies were.
Okay.
And other than that, we covered the whole. And much of our activity was right on the Laos-Cambodian border for most of the time I was there, although I was down in the I-Corps,
Yeah.
in the Delta.
That was going to be my next question. Did you have to do any missions inside Laos and Cambodia?
There were a couple.
Yeah.
There were a couple, and that was pretty amazing. We'd go over there and land, and they were trying to get refugees out, and it was really sad. I mean, we just piled as many of them as we could into the airplane, and literally Loadmaster had to be back there with a stick or something to drive to get people off, so we could close the door.
Right,
You know,
right.
it was amazing.
I mean, I just can't imagine how desperate those people felt that they're being if they don't get
Well,
on that plane. What's
one
going
of
to
the
happen?
one of the desperate things you see all the time are those pictures of when we were leaving.
Yes.
Remember those?
Yes, I sure do. On the top of the
Yeah,
embassy,
yes,
the
with the
helicopters. Yep.
helicopters, and they push a helicopter over the edge of the carrier.
Yep.
But,
Yep.
So,
Well, I mention that is because I just recently found out one of my Green Beret medical classmates. He was a medic. He went over to Vietnam. I lost my sergeant major, who had been in World War II in Korea, and he really didn't have to go to Vietnam because he had already been. He had 2 combat
Tours.
tours and infantry badges, but he wanted to go, and he went over and. I remember a little going away party for him, and within about 90 days, his chopper was blown out of the air and he died. And then 30 days later, that was Sergeant Major Carl Pilkington, and then my medic classmate, Howard Hill, he was killed about 30 days later. Let's see, it was April of '69, and then May of '69, Howard Hill was killed. And we never knew, we got information about Sergeant Major Carl Pilkington, but we never got any information about Howard Hill. He just died in combat. That's essentially all we got. And that was back at Fort Bragg. It was only like 2 years ago that his mission that he was on in Laos was just declassified.
okay.
And what had happened, their chopper was shot down. Chopper rolls over, the crew chief gets pinned under a burning chopper. They were trying to go after him, and they lost their lives going after him. The rest of the special forces team had to back off. It was about 2 or 3 days later they came in with a recovery team to recover the bodies in the helicopter. There were no bodies, and there was no helicopter. They had dismantled. You know, it takes one of our heavy-duty choppers to lift a piece of wreckage up. They tore that helicopter down bolt by bolt, and it had people just carry it all away, and there was nothing there except for the burn marks.
Wow.
But I shared that, there's a Facebook page for Special Forces guys, and I mentioned that, and several of my medic classmates are on that page, and they said they were always wondering what happened on that particular mission. Yeah. So.
Well, this has been amazing, and again, I know you feel sensitive about hearing about the gratitude that we have, but it's
we
hard
have
for
it.
us not to. So you excuse us.
No, that's fine.
It's,
You know.
but yeah, we're so glad to help support this dinner in any way that we can.
And support veterans, period, in any
period.
way we can.
In any way that we can. You know, Kelly and I feel lucky that we've never had to serve, and so we're very fortunate from that standpoint that, you know, people
Yeah.
were there defending our freedom.
And I think one of the things that the club does that I think is just as important, and maybe more so, is our salute the recruits.
Oh.
And I don't want to get ahead of myself.
No,
that's
that's something else
No,
coming up too.
because- Because
We're there too.
that is, you talk about people not paying attention.
Right.
That's where people are not paying attention. We have the best kids going out there. They're amazing.
Yep.
It's not like when we were, when you had the draft and everybody that could walk and chew gum, and maybe
Yep.
not that at the same time, was going. Now, these kids are bright. I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking some of the best,
Yeah.
and seeing them there with thanking their families.
Yes. I know we've had, let's see, John Bowker from Valparaiso University, who's in our Kiwanis Club, started it 6 years ago. And it has grown. And what he recognized at the time was that there are kids who are academically inclined. They get scholarships and recognition. The athletes, they get their letter jackets and they get recognitions. But the kids going directly from high school into the military got no recognition. And he came up with the idea and started the luncheon program. And then after the success of our Veterans Dinner, he moved it to the nighttime. I've joined in to help co-chair that. And right now we're already starting to preliminary plan for that for next May. The Army decided to take 27 of the Army guys before graduation. They knew they were going to graduate, but they were so desperate to get these guys going in training because normally we felt we were safe with that salute the recruits up to June 15th. And we felt these guys would not get deployed to basic
Sure.
training until the end of June. Well, they took them in May, and before our program. So we're working on that. I'd like to give a little plug for both the clubs. Rotary Club in Valparaiso meets on Mondays from basically 11:30 to 1 o'clock at the Old Town Banquet Center. And our Kiwanis Club, we meet basically 11:30 to 1 o'clock on Wednesdays at the Old Town Banquet Center. Both of those clubs, if you're not familiar with them, are service organizations. We raise lots of money to give it away, and we have a lot of fun. And if you want to meet a lot of unselfish, compassionate people, like this guy right here, and his other flyboy brother, Steve Miller, that they're just great you're not doing it for any other cause other than to help people. And both the Rotary and the Kiwanis Club in Valparaiso are just awesome.
They are.
Our noontime group is still #1 in the state of Indiana,
about to ask that.
right?
Yep.
And we're 9th in the world. So we're struggling and
That's pretty
struggling,
amazing
working
when you
hard.
think
Knowing
Yeah.
Lenny during his presidency, he'll probably
Yeah,
drive
bring
it to
it
be
right up
number one
there.
in the world.
Yes, well, for every table of 10 tickets that we sell, well, that first year I promised to do 10 push-ups for every table of 10. Well, a long time ago I could do a lot, but once I got to 30, I said, please don't sell 4 tables in one day. And we have another gentleman, Doug McMillan, that people know in the area. He came forward and he's put in a happy buck as we were going around collecting some money. And he says, I will do 10 push-ups for every table that we sell. Well, if he'd have come last week, he'd only done about 20 push-ups because we only sold 2 tables. But he went to Las Vegas last week, and we've sold about 4 more tables since then. So now we're up to 60 push-ups.
That dude.
I saw him.
May have to spread that out over some.
Yeah.
I saw him at breakfast the other day, and I said, "You and I may have to split the duties," because he says, "I'm gonna have to have the paramedics standing right next to you, pal."
Poor Doug. Yeah, we know that. Man, oh man.
He has a great sense
With
of
that,
humor.
our producer is yelling at us from the control room somewhere.
Okay.
We got to wrap things up
Okay,
here.
very good.
So listen, we appreciate you guys
was
coming
so
on.
much.
And again, just to recap, the dinner is when?
It's Wednesday, November the 6th,
Yep.
5:30 to 8:30 at the Old Town Banquet Center in Valpo. And you got basically about 3 days to get your tickets.
This Friday.
Up
Right.
until
This
November
Friday.
the 1st. This Friday will be the cutoff date because we have to turn in the head count
Counted
order
stuff,
for all the
sure.
food.
And then
And the food's awesome.
also
It
we
is
get-
very good.
Oh yes,
And
very
always
good.
ask, by the
Yeah.
way, you may not be able to buy a ticket, but one of the members may have extras.
Yes.
So be sure to ask,
Check it out.
You can go online to the Kiwanis, Noontime Kiwanis theFacebook page. There's an
Yes.
event there they can buy. And then also First Source Bank will have them all the way up till Friday?
All the way up through
The
Friday.
4
Okay.
branches here in Valpo, yeah.
Great. And that's, boy, we'll have all that information up on our Facebook page along with the post of this video.
And hopefully we'll see everybody there. 'Cause
Yes,
we'll be there.
we'll
all
definitely
be
be
here.
there.
Yeah, that's
You have
for
been,
sure.
both of you, Bill and Kelly, you've both been strong supporters of the veterans since you have been involved with your telecommunications show. And we just want to express our thanks to both of you for being such strong supporters of the
That's for
veterans.
sure.
Make
It's
it
the least
easy.
we could do.
That's for sure.
The least we could
Absolutely.
do.
Good.
So very supportive. And with that, we'll wish you guys a great
you.
Rest of the week. And again,
And a
thank you
happy
for your-
Halloween and all
Yeah.
that good stuff.
And let me salute your audience.
Yeah,
All right,
there you
thank
go.
you.
With that, we'll say goodbye.
Bye,
Goodbye for
everybody.
now.
This episode of The Bill and Callie Show is brought to you by Tiger Plumbing. Whether you need to replace a faucet, overhaul your sump pump, or desludge your drains, call Tiger Plumbing. In today's world, knowing who's at your door is important. Tiger Plumbing sends you your technician's photo, estimated time of arrival, and a little bit about him or her. Hey, Sam likes fishing and camping. Cool. Boss put you in charge of the company picnic? Streck and Van Til can cater that. In the doghouse? Streck and Van Til's floral department can help you with that. Birthday, anniversary, shower, or get-together? Streck and Van Til's bakery and deli departments can help with that. Want additional savings? There's an app for that. Streck and Van Til, your Northwest Indiana hometown grocer since 1959, with 20 locations to serve you.